Travelling to Canberra, the Pride shook off the bus ride with a goal in the 7th minute and then a second on the 35th. Melanie Cott's long ball ending with American Lindsay Jones, who chipped in. 2-0 up before half-time. The Pride could have made it more, only for execution. But missing Matilda's vice-captain Joanne Peters through injury and without Australian youth players until they've fulfilled World Cup duties, the Pride's strong start can't be underestimated. In cricket, Newcastle's lead up to the Country Cricket Championships continued with a solid win against Illawarra. The traditional Steel City clash now plays for the Ewan Tennant Shield, and after a few years without it, Rhys Soper's 125 put the visitors in a great position. He wasn't too bad with the ball either, as Illawarra tried to chase down the 409 needed to retain the trophy. Brad Bannister's 5-wicket haul doing the damage as the hosts crumbled to be all out for 165. Newcastle will play the opening round of the Country Championships at Maitland starting November 12.
When the doors flung open after this morning's 2-hour English paper, the reaction was fairly positive.
It was all right. Yeah, what I expected.
I think it went all right. Yeah, it's the most confident I've been in ages.
The number of students sitting the higher school certificate this year in the region is up by 200 on last year, and teachers say stress levels can also rise.
Remain calm, to set themselves realistic goals in terms of their study periods, to balance it with some exercise, eating well, sleeping well is important to get good night's sleep. Don't stay up too late studying. Most of the work has been done by now.
It's pretty hard. Wasn't what I was expecting, but it's okay.
1 down, 5 to go.
Approach each exam positive, not to get too stressed because that doesn't achieve anything, but to go in and think, well, I've done what I've done and here's the opportunity to do it to get the best possible result.
Languages will be tested tomorrow, with the second English paper and industrial technology on Wednesday. The last exams are scheduled for Friday the 12th of November. Paul Lobb, NBN News. This rider training course near Newcastle today looked like any other, but a closer glance reveals that all these riders are just girls. At least that's the name of the club they belong to. They're the new wave of Women on Wheels, part of a growing fraternity that now sees females making up about a third of all new riders.
They make very safe riders, and I think the reason they do is that they listen attentively to what the background and the theory behind the thing is, and they get in and do it.
As well as that, these go-fast gals are also having a ball without their men.
We've got 138 members just girls, and that's entirely girls. Our weekends away are all ladies.
Today's workshop focused on handling the machines on a wet road, skills that the girls use on their trips out of town.
And when we go away all together as just girls, we book a country pub out, and the atmosphere is completely different when it's just all women. It's quite noisy, as you can imagine.
They'll make plenty of noise on Saturday with a charity ride from Hexham to Merriwa, leaving Hexham McDonald's at 10 a.m, and all are welcome. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
A cloud has hung over the future of the old Wangi Power Station site for some time, but finally a silver lining. A breath of fresh air for both the Queensland-based developer and Lake Macquarie Council.
They had a meeting last night with the Lake Macquarie Council, and they've given the okay to go ahead with the plans for the building.
But it's not all go just yet. The master plan has to go through a public consultation period to help determine what to zone the land. If approved, this heritage-listed yet extremely run-down building will be transformed into a residential and commercial hub, boasting a motel, cinema and creating up to 1,300 jobs. Optimistic estimates could see work begin within 18 months.
We have installed security alarms all around the building, plus cameras also. No more damage is done to it.
And Council has approved the construction of a 78-unit retirement village on the former Wangi Caravan Park, owned by the neighbouring Workers Club. But nothing is certain yet, as the board chases the best possible long-term investment. Adam McKilrick, NBN News. The roof is starting to take shape over the eastern grandstand, but it's doing little to shelter workers from the wet weather.
We're at the stage where they're putting all the roof structure up now, and the riggers can't work in these sort of conditions, particularly if it's wet and windy.
Work on the ground itself continued today, but overall they're now 3 weeks behind schedule, with a revised opening date of mid to late April.
If the rain is kind to us from this point in time onwards, we'll be okay.
The Knights find themselves in a similar position as last season, with the renovations and rugby league season to cross over. They've since approached the NRL requesting their first 5 games on the road.
It's not a last minute thing that's been determined by any weather delays or anything. It was just the expected timeline for the construction, and we factored that into our planning for the year.
Although the NRL is yet to finalise its 2005 draw, it's expected the Knights will be granted their first 5 games away, much like last year. In this case, though, they're hoping history doesn't repeat after losing some big names to injury early on in the season.
If we can get away to a good start away from home, obviously we'll pick up the benefit of a run of home games later on in the season, hopefully.
Adam McKilrick, NBN News. Our state reps have rated Newcastle's top-billed cricket venue as one of the best going, and today it was also one of the wettest. Taking no chances, ground staff have prepared well for the big wet, but do need some dry weather before Sunday to avoid delays on match day.
The wicket's been covered since last Saturday. He actually had the roller on it on Sunday and Monday, so it has been rolled and the wicket's quite hard underneath. So all we need is a bit of sunshine to dry the outfield.
In much drier conditions, the Blues announced their squad to meet Tasmania on Sunday. Nathan Bracken, Stuart Clark and McGill among those to make the trip north, chasing their first win this season.
We've never had an ING Cup game before, and New South Wales playing Tassie. It's an opportunity for people to come along and see a one-day game in Newcastle.
That is, of course, weather permitting. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
All the prawns for sale at the Co-op today were imported, but fishermen are hoping that by Christmas these trays will be full of local product thanks to this week's rain.
Well, I think that we've been waiting for this for a fair while to wash some of the prawns down from up the upper reaches of the river. So we're hoping to have a good catches, especially of Hunter River prawns, maybe some Stockton Bight prawns which we haven't had for a couple of years, and so they're very tasty. And maybe we'll get a good catches of king prawns again.
The Co-op says Australia's growing obsession with seafood for the Christmas table means it can sell as many prawns as it can get, and even then local supplies are bolstered by frozen imports. This year, though, Hunter River prawns should be in good supply.
Well, at this stage they start on the first Monday in December, so they put it back for a couple of months to see if the prawns would get any bigger and more plentiful for Christmas.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It was standing room only, with the All Saints Anglican Church filled to capacity. They came in droves to honour and remember the much respected captain of the Scots Flat Rural Fire Brigade, Graham Patton. According to RFS Commissioner Phil Koperberg, Graham epitomised the spirit of community-mindedness, was passionately committed to his brigade and was the essence of the New South Wales RFS. And while the tears flowed throughout the ceremony, it was also a celebration of his generosity and community spirit, which extended far past the RFS. Graham would have celebrated his 35th wedding anniversary with wife Joy on Saturday. She described him as her soulmate. Graham Patton died of a heart attack while doing what he loved. Fondly known as the General, he was a member of the RFS for more than 40 years. His incredible dedication to his community, a legacy which his fellow firefighters have pledged to carry on. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Over the past decade, thousands have probably thought the Beresfield roundabout at the northern end of the F3 should go. Today, the submission from Roads Minister Carl Scully.
Well, I hate it. So if I hate it, I'm sure everyone else does.
A bottleneck for holiday traffic and on occasions a danger zone for semi-trailers, its days as a link to the Pacific Highway may soon be numbered. The state government has begun a $5 million investigation into the construction of a dedicated dual carriageway to connect the F3 at Beresfield with the Pacific Highway at Heatherbrae, including a new bridge over the Hunter River, and the Federal Roads Minister will be asked to speed up the project.
Well, that'll cost between $250 and $300 million, but I'll be telling John Anderson I want it part of the next 10-year Pacific Highway agreement.
And as to when motorists can expect dual carriageway north of the recently opened Karua bypass, Carl Scully says work on future upgrades of the highway is progressing.
Now, we are already well advanced in the planning for the extension up to Bulladila and beyond.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
On a straight stretch and relatively good section of road, 2 cars came to grief. Nothing could prepare emergency service workers who arrived to find the Holden Commodore in pieces, the impact splitting the car in 2. Just moments before, witnesses claim the young driver had overtaken them. They say he was speeding.
About 20 yards after he's got past me, he's lost it. And the car's gone sideways and it's picked up. It's hit the little, I don't even know what that was, a Toyota of some sort. He's hit that and the car's just exploded.
The driver of the Commodore and his female passenger died despite the frantic efforts of those who had stopped to help.
To see a young bloke lying there like that and his girlfriend, I assume it's his girlfriend, lying over there like that beggars description, mate. It's just bloody tragic.
The female driver of the Toyota died a short time later. All victims are believed to be in their 20s. Witnesses say the southbound Holden had crossed to the wrong side of the road, colliding with the northbound Corolla. Police haven't released much information about the crash, which is sure to be the subject of a lengthy investigation. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
The #1 sports ground had plenty of action on it today, but not from cricketers, rather groundsmen continuing their race against time and the elements.
Working around the clock to try and keep our head above water, so to speak.
The pitch has few problems. The outfield, though, is of a concern, and after clearing large sections of water from the ground overnight, fans were brought in today.
We've got a fine day, a bit of breeze around, so it's we've turned the corner and we're coming back the other way.
The Blues are hoping for a change in fortunes as well. Competitive in their opening games, results haven't gone their way, and they hope their first home game can deliver that win.
It was all one way up in Brisbane last week, and the guys performed really well. So hopefully the crowd can get on our backs and get us over the line.
Skipper Brad Haddon will go a long way to helping that. Enjoying good form with the bat and his birthday today, he's wishing for the obvious gift.
Early in the season, though, I'd like to turn one of those 60s or something into 100, but we'll see how we go.
Just how Michael Bevan goes against his old state is what most people are looking out for, but his former teammates pledge they'll treat him with due respect.
I think the crowd would be, but we're looking at it as in he's just another player. At the moment, if we concentrate too much on Michael Bevan, it's going to take away from our guys.
The match starts at 10 o'clock.
For many commuters in Cardiff, these steps represent isolation and the stripping of their independence. While some claim they've been forced to give up using the service, others, like Alec Gilmore, struggle to negotiate the 81 steps from the car park to the station.
I've got to hang on to a rail and go down one at a time where I won't fall.
And he's not alone. Roy Howard is visually impaired and can't reach the platform unaided.
My wife directs me to the handrail, and I hold the handrail and just steadily take the step one by one, which is not easy.
Cardiff local Brian Young says he's been fighting to have a lift installed for several years, and despite a positive meeting with the state's Transport Minister Michael Costa in July this year, nothing has been done.
It's 3 months ago and not a thing has been done about it.
It's such a common sense, basic proposition. I'm really struggling to see why the Minister is not getting behind the community.
The group says it won't let complacency stand in its way, instead planning to continue lobbying for disabled access. Colleen West, NBN News.
Australian native platypus is one of the world's most puzzling and unique animals. It has a duck bill, webbed feet and lays eggs, yet it isn't a bird as it's covered in fur. And it doesn't end there. The animal's sex determination is now mystifying scientists involved in a nationwide study. They've found that the animal known as a monotreme has multiple sex chromosomes. It's widely known that humans have two sex chromosomes, the female X chromosome and the male Y chromosome. Well, the platypus outdoes us by far.
In the platypus, there's about 52 chromosomes in total. And of those, 10 are sex chromosomes, 5X and 5Y.
And that's very rare in the animal world. In fact, there's no other mammal that comes anywhere close to 10 sex chromosomes. A small group of researchers from the University of Newcastle were a major force in the study, taking samples from platypuses in the upper Bernard River in the Hunter Valley. And while the findings may not sound like much in the big scheme of things, scientists say this sheds new light on the evolution of mammals, including humans, and also shows close links between birds and mammals.
Before that, we didn't know how mammals were related to birds. And this data shows that there does seem to be a close relationship between birds and mammals in sex determination.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Police say we're approaching the worst 2 months of the year for assaults. Increases, and more than half are alcohol related, prompting police to put pressure on pubs and clubs to help reduce.
Grids and precincts within the Newcastle city.
Assaults on 15 to 24-year-olds are up by a staggering 43% on a year ago.
It can be over money, it can be over girls, it can be over alcohol, it can be a wide range of causes.
The two young men injured in Hunter Street at 4 a.m. yesterday were attacked by a gang of teenagers. Hospital staff say a senseless assault can change a life forever.
If people can think about the fact that they might be ruining someone's life forever, literally, that they might think twice about it. But certainly you wouldn't want to spend the rest of your life with a severe brain injury just from one Saturday night.
Cricket season has barely begun, but local rugby officials have only one thing on their mind: bringing back the Caldwell Cup they last won in the year 2000.
There's no doubt about it that we have underperformed in the last few years, and we want to take Newcastle and Hunter Rugby back to the pinnacle of the country championships.
A 23-man squad was named today, featuring 9 players from this year's grand final teams, Eastern Districts and Wanderers. 5 of the Waratahs club have also committed to a program that starts next week and includes a training camp at Nelson Bay mid-November.
We've got the best players available, and their goal is to win the country championship, and they're prepared to put the hard work in to do it.
It's thought these are also the first steps of Newcastle's return to the Sydney Club competition in 2006. A competition restructure would see Newcastle and the Central Coast participate in a round-robin pool competition for the first half of the season to contest the Shute Shield.
It's great that from the executive of New South Wales Rugby, they're seeing it really as New South Wales Rugby and not Sydney Rugby.
But unlike the region's last foray into the competition, it won't be a separate club, such as the Wildfires.
Absolutely not. It'll be under the control of Newcastle and Hunter Rugby and controlled by the board.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
A broken index finger is a basketball player's Achilles heel, preventing Kavossi Franklin from firing long-range shots like these for at least 3 weeks. But no such drama this morning, both his finger and feet well healed in time for tomorrow night's round 6 matchup with the Brisbane Bullets in Newcastle. The only minor concern being a bloodshot eye, the result of a spirited training session.
We've been intense all week, so, I have a guy that Larry Davidson was trying to block my shot, and unfortunately he caught me in the eye, but that's all right, Now we have him getting up off the floor trying to block shots, and that's a good thing for us.
The Pirates hosted Brisbane back in round 1 when the visitors walked away with the points, if only just. In the country for just a few days back then, Brian Weathers was among the star performers and has since settled in well, proving to be money well spent.
Brian's only been here really for 3.5 weeks, and it's been going great. We're finally starting to gel, and the more and more we play together, each and every day we're going to get better as a team.
Adam McKilrick, NBN News. An abundance of sequins, smiles and fake tan accompanied some truly amazing performances in a sport officials say is a combination of gymnastics and dance.
The gymnastics side of it makes it very difficult. The aerobic side of it is complex, and the dance side of it is the presentation side.
Each competitor is given 2 minutes to impress the critics, judging creativity and technique. Music selection is also scrutinised.
The music has to be totally motivating and, get you out there because you need that fitness right to the end of the routine.
Among those tipped to feature in tomorrow's final, World Youth Champion Cassie Scully. The Coffs Harbour standout now in the senior ranks and has former World Youth number 2 Sandy Carmichael breathing down her neck. With heats still going, just a handful will earn the right to again appear on stage tomorrow afternoon. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
Pirates coach Adrian Hurley's game plan was to get the ball to the big guys, and after a shaky first quarter, the Hunter Young Guns got their game together with spectacular results.
Some of our guards also learned tonight the more they give it to the big guys, then the more they'll get it back, and the more we can run, the more we can score. And I think there was a realisation there, a bit more confidence.
Hunter Imports' Brian Weathers scored 27 points, Kavossi Franklin 26 and big man Ben Melmoth 21.
They had a focus and they had a plan and they were able to execute that, and we got Brisbane into foul trouble, which was very important, and that was part of our game plan as well.
Super Hubert was fired up as the Hunter boys piled on the points in the home stretch, overwhelming the Bullets.
Yeah, we gave up 75 points in the second half, and I give them their credit. They hit some unbelievable shots. I think every time the shot clock was running down, they knocked it down. They stayed with it. It was a sign of confidence on their behalf, and they did a good job.
Hunter fans were brought to their feet at the siren. The 12-point win, the Pirates' second from 6 games. They take on the Wollongong Hawks next weekend.
It's just a small independent video store with limited cash in the till, but at 8:30 on Saturday night it became the target of an armed robber.
Apparently a man came in and just opened the door and shoved the gun through the door and said, "Give me all your money." So our little casual shop assistant gave him everything that we had.
A man aged about 20 pointed the gun at a terrified young shop assistant working in the Whitebridge store.
She's a bit shaken up, but she's all right.
Lake Macquarie police are making inquiries into the incident and expect to be interviewing a man, possibly a suspect, shortly. The thief was well disguised, wearing a black beanie, dark sunglasses, gloves and a white bandana covering the lower part of his face. He's described as having a fair complexion, is 5'10" and has a medium build. Around the same time on Saturday night, a pub brawl turned nasty outside Newcastle's Crown and Anchor Hotel when a 30-year-old redhead man fired a .22 calibre sawn-off rifle. Dean James Price appeared in Newcastle local court today and was sentenced to 12 months jail with a non-parole period of 9 months. And it didn't end there. Waratah police charged a 26-year-old Lambton man with assault following a vicious attack last night. It's believed a 34-year-old man was discovered in Armstrong Street, Lambton, and was transported to the John Hunter Hospital in a critical condition. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It was a case of water everywhere except for where it was really wanted after breaks in a 500mm water main at Taro and the Chichester trunk main at Millers Forest. Hunter Water has blamed a pressure surge as supply was being restored to the pipes after maintenance work.
That caused a significant number of breaks throughout the Beresfield area and the major trunk main as well.
2,000 homes at Beresfield, Taro and Woodbury were left dry while corporation crews isolated the problems and carried out repairs. The decision of the workers to brave adverse weather during the operation has drawn praise from management.
I went out on site myself and I have to say, our crews were magnificent in terms of responding to the problem and working through that storm that came through and focusing on getting customers back in water as soon as they possibly could.
Homes had water by early last night, up to 4 hours earlier than anticipated. Just what caused the disruptive pressure surge is the subject of an investigation.
Our preliminary focus, of course, was to get customers back on water as soon as we possibly could. And today is the business of understanding how the problem occurred and how we can stop it occurring again in the future.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Josh Blair has stepped up his training in an effort to gain entry to the prestigious event. Blair made it to the last 20 in 2002, but missed out last year. On the weekend, he took out the Ironman event at the Hunter Branch Carnival at Caves Beach.
It was good to be able to have some early racing. That was the major reason I raced over the past 2 weeks. And also it's a chance to get that race conditioning before I go up to Coffs Harbour.
Blair, who is now 27, is one of the older Ironmen still competing, but it appears his age has not slowed him down. As part of his training, he swims daily at Newcastle Uni's pool and paddles board and ski in Lake Macquarie. The still water more of a physical challenge than the surf.
So with a month out, I've sort of got a few hard sessions planned, but at the moment, there's a lot of training in the pool and also on the other craft and running as well.
A high-profile campaign led by Mayfield business leaders came to a head last night when Newcastle councillors voted against plans to establish a methadone clinic on Maitland Road.
And to come out with a unanimous decision was more than Mayfield expected. But I might say it's what Mayfield deserved.
Councillors rejected the proposal because of fears that the clinic would have a negative impact on the social and economic development of the suburb and that it didn't meet council guidelines.
This is an inappropriate use of that facility, of that building in that location, and the council voted that way.
Businesses in the streets celebrated their victory today, hopeful that what they describe as a more suitable location can be found for the clinic.
We've always felt that we're on the right track and that decision's been well vindicated.
The council has objectives of revitalisation of the main street of Mayfield and the area, and we're pursuing those objectives and have done for some few years. Now, it was seen clearly that a methadone clinic in that location was contrary to those objectives.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's young players like those from the Newcastle Port Stephens Youth League side that are earmarked for a future in the new national competition. This weekend, Australian Institute of Sport head coach Steve O'Connor has been working with the 16-year-olds on and off the pitch, showing them what it takes to kickstart a professional career through the AIS soccer program.
Not always the talented ones finish up playing in Europe or wherever. Sometimes it's the less talented ones that are persevered or really worked hard.
It's hoped the A-League will take the round ball game in Australia to the Premier level and also provide the country's best young players with a genuine introduction to first-class soccer.
And not go overseas too young, as often they do, and get thrown into the meat market over there.
Todd Nardi, NBN News. Unfortunate but not unexpected news at Hunter Pirates training this morning. Young forward Larry Davidson will sit out tonight's match against Premiership frontrunners Wollongong after succumbing to a recurring ankle injury. Coach Adrian Hurley gave his Pirates plenty to think about ahead of tonight's 7:30 tip-off. Hunter has never beaten Wollongong, while a victory tonight would also be the first time the Pirates have ever scored 2 wins in a row. Meantime, in national netball, the Hunter Jaegers have announced their squad for the 2005 season. The side's scoring potential has been greatly increased. 193cm tall Australian and former Sydney Swifts shooter Jane Altswager has been unveiled as the Jaegers' big off-season signing. Centre still shapes as the toughest spot to fill with the retirement of captain Reagan Jackson. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
Unusually, peak hours struck at 9:30 this morning as these trucks made the Pacific Highway their own. Part of Transport Awareness Day, the convoy certainly made its presence felt en route to the city, where 215 trucks filed into place at Foreshore Park. There, drivers and industry officials took questions from an inquisitive public, attempting to restore a squeaky clean image.
There are, regrettably, incidents that take place, and on occasions fault lies with the trucking industry. We don't step back from that. We're working very hard to make sure those incidents are at a minimum.
As with most things, engines have come a long way, resulting in more horsepower, which drivers claim is half the problem.
These things are faster than cars, that's the whole trouble.
As far as cosmetics go, there's not one blemish on these vehicles, reflecting a real pride in their job. All proceeds from today earmarked for the Westpac rescue helicopter. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
Sold into private ownership, the former Newcastle Post Office, which is being marketed for commercial rental, is a shadow of its past. Front windows and doors are boarded up and graffiti marks the sandstone. Only blocks away, the Coote Sailors' Home, another link with Newcastle's past, also lies in disrepair. Councillor Keith Parsons fears both could now potentially fall victim to arsonists.
And I think that'd be a tragedy because the two buildings that are crying out for adaptive recycling.
At Councillor Parsons' suggestion, the current owners of both buildings will be told that the city has grave concerns for the building's future and the apparent lack of development proposals. Listing on the State Heritage Register will also see the state government asked to intervene on the post office.
They can take legal action to force the owner to remediate, and they can even requisition the building. That has happened a couple of times over the last 25 years, where a building's actually been compulsorily purchased by the government.
And the government's ownership of the Coote Sailors' Home up until the mid-1990s also has it in Councillor Parsons' sights.
I think it's disgraceful that the state government handed over to the Wabakon Land Council without a big parcel of money to atone for their own neglect.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
It's almost 2 years to the day since fire ripped through Western Lake Macquarie. Thankfully, there hasn't been a blaze like it since. The region is again on constant watch, with the Rural Fire Service wasting no time issuing its latest warning on a day when temperatures soared well into the 30s.
Yeah, we are in the bushfire danger period. Yes, the weather will increase. Yes, we are about to come into summer. And yes, we will have fires.
We've had rain over recent periods and people can become complacent that the fire season's over, and that's certainly not the case.
The Central Coast is another hot spot fire authorities will be watching with eagle-eye vigilance, with particular interest on properties backing on to bush reserves.
Unfortunately, on the fringe of the urban areas, there's a high incidence of fires that are deliberately lit, whether they're careless or malicious, is subject to investigation.
The Rural Fire Service is also driving home the communication message this season, relying on the community to report any signs of fire, no matter how insignificant it may seem. Adam McKilrick, NBN News. These women have bound together to help their community better handle a drug problem which has, unfortunately, forced its way into their lives. They're mad by name and, in some ways, by nature.
We did a few tantrums to get things sort of underway, and we had to look at our own backyards too, which is what we've done by creating Mums Against Drugs.
A group formed by Daniela Chedzi out of pure heartache. Her son and nephew came into contact with discarded needles in this very same park, creating a mountain of worry for the entire family.
Not knowing how long Hep C stays within a needle, not knowing how long Hep B stays in, and also AIDS, because it's still quite an unknown for most mums.
Both boys were given the all clear. From there, Daniela and other mothers made it their objective to educate the community about needle stick injuries, and they're going back to basics.
Putting them in people's letterboxes, making them available to the health centres, the hospitals.
Tomorrow, they'll be officially recognised by the state government as a community drug action team driven by a basic message.
Everybody should remember that there are children that live in this community, and when one gets hurt, it hurts the whole community. Please look after your needles.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
Nelson Bay Road was identified in August by an NRMA member survey as one of the Hunter's worst roads. Last night, a 43-year-old Warners Bay man became the fourth person in just 4 weeks to be killed on the 7-kilometre section of state-owned main road between Williamtown and Fern Bay. Crash investigation police still want to speak with witnesses to help establish the circumstances surrounding why a four-wheel drive slammed into the driver's side of the man's car at the junction that also doubles as the exit from Newcastle Airport. A 5-year-old boy who was a backseat passenger of the car was rushed to John Hunter Hospital by a rescue helicopter, where he remains in a serious condition. A 33-year-old woman in the front seat of the vehicle was taken to hospital by road ambulance, suffering minor injuries. Just after sunrise this morning, emergency services were on the scene of another serious accident. A ute driven by an 18-year-old Branxton man hit a power pole in a high-speed crash at the intersection of McMullins Road and Hillview Road, East Branxton. He was airlifted to Newcastle by a rescue helicopter in a critical condition. Gary Blair, NBN News. The coal discarded on this hill didn't make the grade in the days of Neath Colliery. 40 years after the mine closed, it's now a harmful environmental nuisance.
That, of course, is breaking down under the influence of little microbes called Thiobacillus ferrooxidans. And those little buggers eat sulphur and excrete acid and iron.
The result is this murky mix of acid and iron, which has made its way into waterways as far away as Maitland. It's taken Curry Landcare 6 years to develop a treatment to neutralise the acid. With support from Curry's aluminium industry and now Hunter Water, a series of pumps stir hydrated lime into this dam to change the pH level.
And then you get flocculation and all of the contaminants settle out, the acid is neutralised.
Curry Landcare is treating 3 of the worst cases of the problem, and there are numerous others. The group's next advance at Neath will come if Cessnock Council allows the coal that is the source of the problem to be removed.
Separating the coal from the refuse and selling it as good quality coal because it's part of the Greta seam, some of the best in the world.
Council is scheduled to consider the request next week. Gary Blair, NBN News. This new building in High Street, Maitland, is the centrepiece of the $35 million relocation of mineral resources from Sydney to the Hunter. So far, 120 of the personnel who oversee the mining industry and the management of the state's mineral wealth have made the move, and more are on their way to the new departmental headquarters.
We've got another tranche of people coming in the middle of January, which is our inspectorate staff from Gateshead, and I think by around about March next year we'll have most of our people in the building, and we'll have
hopefully progressed in our recruitment campaign, and we'll be up and running in Maitland.
Mineral Resources' new Mine Safety Technology Centre at Thornton, built as part of the relocation program, has also come online this month. While not all Sydney-based staff have headed north, it now opens job opportunities for local workers.
We'll be recruiting some geologists, some technical officer positions for the laboratory facility, and a few clerical officer type positions. So there'll be a broad cross section of people that we'll be looking to bring into our organisation here.
Mineral Resources expects its headquarters workforce to total more than 200. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The signs were there from the start for the Hunter Pirates, bursting out of the blocks on home court. Notorious slow starters, the Tigers, soon found their stride with some familiar faces and trademark plays. In contrast, it was the Hunters imports who showed the moves in the second term, with Kavossi Franklin and Brian Weathers on the attack as the Pirates pulled away. Geordie Cullen's return from illness only left the Tigers feeling sick as the points kept on coming. Andrew Gaze fought like a tiger on a night little went Melbourne's way. Turnovers, the real killer for the visitors, with Brad Davidson's buzzer-beating 3 summing up the half. No guessing what Tigers coach Lindsay Gaze thought of that. It got no easier after the break as Franklin continued his personal points feast. Plenty of Pirates getting on the board as it was shared around, while the Tigers simply couldn't buy a bucket. The last quarter won for personal highlights. Matt McGovern scoring his first ever NBL career points as the Pirates begin a hectic 6-game stretch with a win.
It's all about team defence, because that's a team that can get a lot of points in a hurry and really hurt you. It had nothing to do with the defence, it had a fair bit to do with our shitty shooting.
Living so close to the beach, many Hunter residents take a trip to the coast for granted. But for people living with a disability, it's a rare treat. That's why the annual picnic to celebrate International Day of People with Disability is held at Little Beach, Nelson Bay.
I've had teachers and parents come up to me in the past saying that they live within a half an hour of the beach, but they never get that opportunity to come down here for a day out.
So they made the most of the occasion and the fine weather, with many taking a dip or cruising in a sailability yacht. On dry land, there was a different mode of transport being tested out, one with a little more grunt. Even Santa couldn't resist a ride. Once St Nick had been bombarded, it was time for some singing, and you'd be pressed to find an act that got the crowd going the way this one did. And while today is a day of celebration for people with a disability, the reality is that many will face issues of reduced cost, care and placements from next year.
Yeah, well, it seems the government's cutting out on things all the time. They're making it harder for people with disabilities and carers. I just wonder if they were put in the same situation, what would happen?
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
After winning 2 Australian PGA championships in the 1960s, Cole Johnston took over the Sugar Valley Golf Club at West Wallsend. The 9-hole course is now set to become the Hunters' latest residential golf village. A local company has bought Sugar Valley and lodged an application to build a 117-villa retirement-style estate. The $13.5 million development will see the course reconfigured into a tighter layout to make room for housing.
It'll end up probably 31 par, which it's 33 now, so it'll be fractions shorter, but I think it'll play really well. Yeah, I'm quite excited about it.
Meantime, Lake Macquarie Council is looking to improve the city's indoor and outdoor sporting facilities. It's considering the heating and redevelopment of the Charlestown Swimming Centre and construction of an indoor sports centre at Toronto. Council says, however, top of the priority list will be working with the Police Citizens Youth Club to improve facilities at Windale. A pool and playing fields have been proposed. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
Once a full-time professional, Joshua Blair trains only when work allows these days, but he's never lost his passion for the surf. Forced to watch the best compete last year after he missed the qualifiers, he's thought of little else over a long winter training campaign.
Watching the final last year and seeing those guys, I mean, that's the driving force. I think seeing that racing and how fast it is and thinking, well, I've still got a few more years. I'd love to give it a crack again.
With Kai Hurst headlining the best 20 Ironman in the country, Blair knows a good start is vital in the series if he's a chance of reaching the final and a look at the $50,000 prize purse.
These first two are quite important, that you're in the top 10 overall, so that you do have a qualifier for this final round and have a crack at the money, I suppose.
Trudy Musgrave is counting down the days too for our return to competitive tennis after a complete knee reconstruction sidelined her 9 months ago.
It's so good just to practice, and I get really excited about even just stepping on the court every time, which is good to be so fresh again.
The 27-year-old hopes she can gain some wildcard qualifiers for the Sydney and Australian Opens next month before heading back overseas. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Built in the late 1880s as the elite skating rink, the Palais Royal has had many faces. For a while the building housed a produce market, but in 1929 it became an opulent dance hall and the place where Newcastle's best movers and shakers came to strut their stuff.
It's been one of Newcastle's longest continuously running entertainment venues. People's parents, grandparents and the works have met here, used the venue for dances, that kind of stuff.
These days there are few reminders of the West End icon's colourful history. Outside, the painted brick facade has been coloured with intentional graffiti artwork, a reminder of the Palais' most recent use as a youth venue. While inside, Art Deco chandeliers and mirror tiles are contrasted with black paint and dark carpet. Tonight, 22 live acts will rock the Palais foundations for one of the last times.
We've sold over 500 pre-sale tickets and we're looking like we're going to pack it out, so it should be huge.
Around April next year, the council's lease on the premises expires and what will become of the dilapidating Newcastle icon will be up to its owners.